Page Zayin, top of page, opposite of page 172. We are in the middle of the Haggadah.
Right over here, in the middle there. Page Zayin.
Okay, that was right.
But it's small.
Whoever wants.
So the larger issue that we're grappling with over here is that on one hand we say that Hashem is Achdus Pshuta, Hashem is absolute unity. And at the same time we say that Hashem is Rachum and Chanun and Chacham, and Hashem is Misyachid with all the different midos. And how does that not impact the unity of Hashem? So earlier in the Perek, the Alter Rebbe, at great length, the Alter Rebbe described how Hashem is essentially completely removed from Chachma. And if he's removed from Chachma, above and beyond Chachma, infinitely removed from Chachma, how much more so, and most certainly that he's also removed from the lower spheres, Bina, Das, Chesed, Gevura, etc. And therefore the Alter Rebbe says we can't really ask a question on Hashem, how it is that why it is that we don't understand him, because he's completely above Chachma. So why don't we understand how it's possible for Hashem on the one hand to be called Chacham and Gibar and Rachum, and at the same time to be Achdus? It's because we're trying to understand something that's not understandable. Hashem is not begeder of Seichel. Hashem is completely removed from the idea of Seichel. So although that seemingly resolved the issue, in other words, if we're saying that Hashem is completely beyond Chachma, and therefore we can't have any grasp of him, that seemingly resolves the situation. But the problem is, it seemingly also leads us to a completely new problem, which is that if Hashem is so removed from Chachma, then how do we say that Hashem is a Chacham? How do we say that he's a Gadol and a Gibar? So here's what Alter Rebbe says. This is something which is very difficult to understand. The Mekubalim understand how it happened. And as we started talking about last week in the Haggadah, the Mekubalim understand that there was a series of tzimtzumim. To be precise, three major tzimtzumim, three major contractions of Hashem's light. First one is the tzimtzum of the Ein Sof, and then we have the tzimtzum of Ak, and then we have the tzimtzum of then we have the Soid Hadikna, the secret of the beard, which is another tzimtzum. And after all those different contractions, what is possible? It's possible to emerge that energy of Hashem should be able to project itself and manifest itself as Chachma, Bina, Das, etc. Even though that Hashem himself, the Ein Sof, is completely removed from all these different spheres, but at the same time Hashem is able to manifest himself through them by way of all of these different tzimtzumim. That's what we spoke about last week. And now we're inside in the Haggadah.
How many lines?
V'hinei. 4 lines from the top of the top. 4 lines from the top. V'hinei achar sheneslabish ein sof v'chines kelim dechabad. After the infinite light of Hashem enters the kelim of Chabad, the kelim is a keli is a vessel, is a utensil. And in general, when we talk about the spheres, there's the oir and there is the keli. The oir means the light or the energy, and then there's the keli, which is the vessel. A keli is always the vehicle for the energy that it contains. So the oir itself is godliness, but it enters the keli. By way of example, I think we spoke about this in the past. If you have water and you pour it into cups, but the cups are colored, so therefore from the outside it looks like the water has a color, but really the water has no color to it. So the same thing is the oir enters the keli. One keli is chesed, has the color of chesed. Actually, if you look in Kabbalah, every sphera actually has a color. Yes, color associated with it. I mean, you wouldn't be surprised to know that chesed is white and gevura is red. That doesn't surprise you probably, but all the other spheres also, they're different colors. Listen, everything that's in this world comes from above, from a spiritual reality. So the keli is what gives the form to the formless energy within. So the Ein Sof enters the kelim of Atzilus, the keli of Chachma, the keli of Bina, the keli of Das. And afterwards, then, once there are these 3 massive tzimtzumim that we spoke about last week, these 3 massive contractions, then the oir, the very, very limited oir, the very limited energy, as we discussed last week, it ends up being like a hair. But that's only the last contraction. There's even more contractions before them. That very limited energy that enters the Kelim of Atzilus, then it's possible to say that which the Rambam says, Hu Yedea, Hu Hamadav, Hu Yadua. Then it's possible to say that Hashem is the knower, and He is the knowledge, and He is that which is known. And that which we learned in the previous Perek, that Hashem knows everything through self-knowledge. But the whole concept of knowledge, and applying the idea of knowledge to Hashem, saying that Hashem is a Yedea, Hashem is a knower, that's only after the Oir enters the Kelim of Atzilus. Lefi, because Shebechinas Kelim d'Atzilus, the Kelim of Atzilus, Nasim Neshama V'chayis, Libriya Yitzira Asiya. The Kelim of Atzilus, through the energy that's in them, they become the Neshama and the Chayis, the life of the worlds beneath, the worlds of Bria, Yitzira, and Asiya, U'L'chayil Asher B'hem, and everything that's in those worlds. So therefore, once the light of Hashem enters the Kelim, and that light now extends to the lower worlds, then we can say Hashem knows Himself. He knows others through self-knowledge. What is the others? The other worlds of Bria, Yitzira, and Asiya. But before Hashem contracts Himself, and before the energy enters the Kelim of Atzilus, you can't at all say that Hashem is the knower. Because Hashem, as He is above Atzilus, is not at all in the category of knowledge and knowing, chas v'shalom, elamayla mayla. Rather, the Eibishter is completely above and beyond that. Ili rav adin ketz, infinitely above. Afilu bechinas v'geder chachma, even from the very concept of chachma. Ad shebechinas chachma nachshevet etzli yizbarach, to the point that chachma is considered by Hashem kebechinas asiya gashmias, like something which is physical. Okay, so this is again, we've touched upon this before, the machlekes between the Rambam and the Maharal, which again here the Alter Rebbe is resolving once again. This is a theme that recurs quite a few times through Tanya, that the Maharal says that Hashem is the knower. The Rambam says Hashem is the knower. The Maharal says chas v'shalom to say Hashem is a knower, and how the Alter Rebbe reconciles the two and says you're both right. And the Maharal, when he says that Hashem is above and beyond Chachma, that's higher than Atzilus, before all the Tzimtzumim aforementioned. And when the Rambam says that Hashem is a knower, it's talking about after the Tzimtzumim. Okay. So therefore, if you were to learn Kabbalah, and if you were to sit and learn this Hagah very well, and learn all the different explanations given on it, you can have some sort of idea how it is possible that an infinite and single Hashem, who has absolutely no definition, can actually manifest Himself in a way of Chachma, in a way of Bina, in a way of Das, and with all that, nothing. It's not Moisef or Ribui on Him in any way, shape, or form. It doesn't mean that He is. There's no multiplicity added in Him, and it's by understanding the pathway of these various tzimtzumim. And now the Alter Rebbe continues, top line of the actual text of this page. V'hinei Eina lanu eiseg ben estaris. You hear? The Alter Rebbe says everything I just described in the Hagah, I put it in a footnote for a reason. Because for the most of us, we don't really understand these hidden things. So if you're feeling very flustered by this Hagah, and you really are a little confused, how is it that these tzimtzumim can cause that a Hashem, which is absolutely one, can unite with multiple spheres and still retain His unity? If you don't understand it, no worries.
It's just an extension, as you.
Okay, so if you understand it, you're the Alter Rebbe says.
I don't understand it.
If you look in the line before it, Alter Rebbe says, Inyan hamshacha v'atzilos eichuma, the line before, bottom line of page 172. Alter Rebbe says, the way that this extension of the light from Hashem, how it is and what it is, it is known to the Mekubalim, to the mystics. Okay, so welcome to the club. However, for the rest of us, the Alter Rebbe says, for most of us, even when we look at, even when we read the Hagah, there's an expression in Yiddish, they say, as if Yahon in Bnei Adam. You ever heard the expression when someone has an idiotic look on their face, like they don't get what's going on? So the words that used is Azevi Ahon in Bnei Adam, which literally translates like a chicken by Bnei Adam. Imagine you're holding the chicken by Kaparis, and the chicken's looking down at the siddur and seeing Bnei Adam. Bnei Adam is the text of the Kaparas. Bnei Adam, that's how the Kaparas begins.
Yeah.
So we understand this Hagah like a chicken understands the Bnei Adam of the... It's expression in Yiddish. Yes.
I think in Rosh Hashanah, Yom Kippur, we said, הנסתרות והנגלות לנו ולבנינו לעולם.
No.
It's exactly the opposite.
No, it doesn't say that at all. Hanastaras Lashem Elokeinu v'anigleis lanu levaneinu. Yeah. However, it's a pasuk. It's a pasuk in Nitzavim. Hanastaras Lashem Elokeinu, that which is hidden to Hashem. V'anigleis lanu levaneinu. Hanigleis lanu. We have to know that which is revealed, and that is lahamin emunah shlema. We believe, even if we don't understand, and even if we don't fully understand the Hagah, we believe, complete belief. And what do we believe? The Iyu v'garmo yichad. We believe that He, Hashem, and the various vessels that He has, the various tools that He has, is one. The Hainu. What are the vessels? Garmo literally means the bodies, the different bodies through which Hashem expresses Himself. The Hainu midayso shel HaKadosh Baruch Hu. That means the midays of Hashem. Uritzoi noyan Hashem is ratzon. V'chachmasai ubinasai v'daitoi. Hashem's wisdom, understanding, and knowledge. All of them, we believe absolutely, are absolutely one, imuhusei v'atzmusei, with Hashem's essence, hamerumam levadei, which alone is completely exalted, revimus in kates, an infinite exaltedness, mebechinas chachma v'seichel v'asaga, from the idea of chachma and wisdom. In other words, we believe that although Hashem is completely removed from chachma, Hashem nevertheless unites with them. And therefore, also the fact that Hashem unites with His midas, those midas which Hashem projected, emanated from Himself. We don't understand this. To understand how it is that Hashem unites with them. And that's why the midas of Hashem, Shehina Spheres, those are the spheres, are called B'Zeir HaKadosh. The spheres are called Raza, the Vehaemunah, which means the secret of belief. Sheyamunah Shalamayla Min HaSeichel, because ultimately the whole concept of the spheres requires Amunah, which is beyond Seichel, because the notion of Hashem, who is completely removed and above and beyond all the midas, and nevertheless unites completely with those midas, to the extent that we call Hashem Rachum, Chanun, Chacham, Giber, etc., is something which really defies human comprehension. So here we have, Dr. Rebbe says, yeah, I gave you in the Hagah, I gave you the Kabbalah, but bottom line is, Yidden were Maminim. We believe that Hashem is one. We believe that even though that Hashem is completely removed from all the midas, nevertheless He expresses Himself through them and unites with them, and they're in no way do they constitute a stira, a contradiction to Achdus Hashem. Now, before we go further, as you know, we finished the Perek. Before we go further, as you know, that we like to sometimes connect that which we're talking about with the Parsha of the week. And this week, when I was thinking about what to connect it to the Parsha and how it connects to the Parsha, I didn't know where to start, because from every single direction, the ideas that we just talked about connect to the Parsha of the week, Parshas Mishpatim, as well as Parshas Shkalim, and in Parshas Mishpatim in multiple ways. So I want to take a moment to talk about this idea. So again, what we're talking here, on the one hand, the Alter Rebbe says, we believe. We're Yidden, we're Maminim, B'nei Maminim, and therefore it's something that we believe, whether or not we understand. And the Maskilim, the people who are the understanders, the Mekabalim, they understand. For the rest of us, we can believe. And this is something which the Alter Rebbe expresses also in other places. Okay, a little later on, the Alter Rebbe repeats it, but we don't have to go there. But at the same time, although the Alter Rebbe says that we could and should believe this, the Alter Rebbe also gives us the Hagah, which one learned properly, which I don't know if we gave it a proper treatment, Maybe we need a few more shiurim just on the Hagah, but the Hagah, which gives us some sort of inkling into the way that Tzimtzumim work and into the mechanism that allows for Hashem to express Himself through the different midas. So here we see the two sides. On the one hand, the Alter Rebbe encourages the idea of Vehaemunah, and Nigla Islanu Levanenu, but at the same time he does say Maskilim Yavinu, that those who understand can understand, and he even gives us he gives us somewhat of a framework with which to work with to be able to try to make a little sense out of it. So as mentioned, this week is Parshas Shkolim. Believe it or not, Purim is coming, Pesach is coming, and in Parshas Shkolim we read about the mitzvah of Machzis HaShekel. Now, what was the Machzis HaShekel used for? So if we look in next week's Parsha, Parshas Truma, right in the beginning of the Parsha, so Rashi over there says, and actually Rashi mentions that also in the beginning of Kisisa by Parshas Shkolim, that there were 3 separate donation drives around that time in the first year or so, after the Yidden went out of the Mitzrayim. One of them was for the purpose of the Adonim. One of them was for the purpose of making the sockets that held up the amudim, the krashim, the beams of the Mishkan. Another one was for the Kabbanas Tzibur, and that, by the way, that's one that continued then thereafter every single year when we talk about Shkolim. And the reason why we read Parsha Shkolim right now on Shabbos Mevarchim is because Be'echad Be'adar Mashmiyim Ala Shkolim, because the new year begins in the month for these purposes begins in Nisan. So 1 month beforehand, Be'ezin announced to everyone it's time to bring in your shkolim for the karbanos for the upcoming year. So that was the second donation drive, was for all the karbanos tzibur. It cost a considerable amount, all the karbanos tzibur, and therefore that was every Yid donated a half a shekel for this every single year. And the third one was the general donation drive, when the Yidden came and brought zav, kesef, and necheshes, and they brought all the different items that were necessary for the Mishkan. The first 2 of these fundraising drives was only Machzis HaShekel. Ha'asher layarbe, v'hadal layamid. Someone who was rich couldn't give more, and someone who was poor couldn't give less. Everyone had to give exactly a half a shekel, unlike today's charity drives. It was precise. And then the third one, which was the general donation drive for the purposes of the construction of the Mishkan, that was everyone gave Asher Yidvenu Liba, everyone gave as much as their heart volunteered them to give. So obviously this raises the question, why were of the 3 of them, and by the way, tomorrow when we read in Parshas Shabbos, when we read Parshas Shkolim, so there Rashi says that parsha in Kisisa, which we read, is about the Trumas HaAdonim. That was the half a shekel that everyone gave for the sockets. As it turned out, exactly 600,000 Yidden giving a half a shekel was exactly the amount of silver that they needed for all the sockets. They needed 100 sockets, and they melted down the silver and they made the sockets. They didn't buy the sockets. They actually melted down the silver and made the sockets out of those Machzis HaShekels. But why is it that 2 of them are a half a shekel, and then one of them is right? One of them is as much as one wishes to give. And there's a deeper question over here. Why Bechlal was there a separate fundraiser drive for the Adanim, for the sockets? And sometimes what's called a klutz kasha. Klutz kasha means it's a simple, easy question, and when someone asks it, everyone says, like, yeah, that's a good question. Why did I never think of that? Right? I'm a klutz. So a klutz means someone who's a fool, but a klutz also means a piece of wood. The Rebbe will sometimes say a klutz kasha are the strongest questions. The simple questions that we don't even think of are also they're tough questions to answer. We didn't have a separate collection drive for the Mizbeach. We didn't have not for the Karbanos, for the Mizbeach, or for the Krashim, or for the Yuriyos. Why is it that of all the things in the Mishkan, we have singled out the Adonim, and there was a separate drive for them? And not only that, but it was also a different type of drive, which is that everyone had to give precisely a half a shekel. So the Rebbe explains that the Adonim which are the sockets, they are the foundations, they are what hold everything up. They represent the idea of simple Kabbalas oil and simple Emunah in Hashem. That's the foundation of everything. Without that, everything crumbles. The foundation of our entire Torah mitzvahs, the foundation of our entire Avodas Hashem. You know, every single one of us is meant to be a Mishkan. V'asuli mikdash, v'shachanti b'soicham, b'soich kol echad v'echad b'Yisrael. Every single one of us is meant to be a sanctuary, a mikdash for Hashem. What is the Adonim? What is our foundation? The foundation in our Avodas Hashem and our Mishkan? That is simple Kabbalah soil. Kabbalah soil means acceptance of the yoke of heaven. Hashem, I'm yours. I'm doing what you want, whether I understand or not. I believe in you, whether it makes sense or not. And that's why we start today with Moida Ani. What does the word Moida mean? So Moida means thank you, but the word Moida also means to acknowledge and to submit. Like when I say I'm Moida to you, that you're right, you're acknowledging, you're submitting. The very first thing we wake up in the morning is we express our submission to Hashem. Hashem, I believe in you. Hashem, I will do what you want me to do today. And the same thing is davening. What is davening mean with the word? Similarly, with the words Hoidu Hashem, Kiru B'Shmai, which once again, Hoidu can be praise or thank, but also the word Hoidu can also be understood as the word submission. Like, as in coming up for the Yom Tov of Purim, where we get introduced to the term Yehudi. All Yidden are called Yehudi. Even Mordechai was called a Yehudi, even though, as the Gemara points out, he was Ish Yemini, he was from the Shevet of Binyamin. The Gemara says, Kol HaKofer B'Avodah Zara Nikra Yehudi. That whoever rejects idolatry and accepts Hashem is called a Yehudi, because the word Yehudi, which is the root of the word Jew, also represents this idea of submission. Yehuda, Haida. And that's why all Yidden are called Yehudi, because that is the basis of our relationship with Hashem. And that's why everyone gave exactly a half a shekel, no more and no less. In terms of our seichel, in terms of our midas, in terms of our capacity to understand, in terms of our capacity to feel and to have emotions towards Hashem, in terms of our desires and our pleasures, all those things I'm talking about in a spiritual sense, our ability to have a ratzon for Hashem and a tainuk for Hashem, in all these areas, everyone is different. We are all different depending on our capabilities and our capacities, and depending also on the level of our neshama, as Dr. Rebbe discusses in Tanya Perik Beis, every one of us comes from a different part of the neshama of Adam Rishon. We're not all the same, and therefore there are differences over there. And that's why in the rest of the Mishkan, and by the way, the Karashim were 10 amas tall, which represents, number 10 represents the entire human psyche. Chachma, Bina, Das, Chesed, Gvura, etc. So in those areas, everyone gave according to their ability, according to their desire. Because in that area of Avodas Hashem, Taka, everyone is unique and different one from another. But in terms of the foundation, Emunah Pshuta in Hashem, simple belief and simple Kabbalah soil, there is no difference between the biggest tzaddik and the simplest yid. Because the definition of Kabbalah soil is that it's not about me. Think about that for a second. Kabbalah soil means, Hashem, it doesn't make a difference who I am and what I want and what I don't want. I'm doing what you want. So because it's not about me, everyone who has Kabbalah soil is the exact same. The moment that it is about me, then my me is different than your me. But Kabbalah soil is the abnegation, the negation of me. And therefore in that area, everyone is the same. Emunah, again, if we're talking seichel, so in the area of seichel, Taka, there are differences. One person understands more. Right? Like Reuven, you got that. Some people understand more, and some people understand less. But in Emunah is, again, the negation of Seichel. Emunah means, Hashem, I'm not relying on my Seichel. I believe, and in that everyone is the same, and that's why the Adonim, which is the foundation, every single Yid gave the exact same, as opposed to the rest of the Mishkan. The structure that was built on top of the Adonim, on top of the sockets, there were differences between Yidden, because every single Yid has their own Avodah.
I have another reason for the Adonim. Adonim is Aleph, Dalet, Nun, Yud. It's Hashem. Mem is 40. After Moshe Rabbeinu went 40 days to Shemayim, we become Chad with HaKadosh Baruch Hu. That's why the Adanim is special.
You are joining Reuven and the Mekubal Club. Very nice. So, the Rebbe notes that in the Talmud Yerushalmi, it says, in the beginning of Parshas Truma, it says the word Truma 3 times. It says, V'yichu li Truma, and then it says, Tichu es Trumasi, and V'zoy sa Truma. So the Yerushalmi actually identifies which one is which. The Yerushalmi says, V'zoy sa Truma, shartikhu mi'itam, zohav, kasef, unacheshes. That's talking about the fundraiser for, in general, for the Mishkan. Tichu es Trumasi is about the Karbanis. And the Yichu li Truma is the Trumas Ha'adanim, is the sockets. The only time where it says about a donation that it's li, the Yichu li Truma, Hashem says it's for me, is the Adanim. Why? Because that's the essence of Kabbalah Soil, is that it's li. It's all for Hashem. Kabbalah Soil and Amunah, it's all for Hashem. So here we have, in the Parsha Shkolim, we have over here, and when we talk about Parsha Shkolim, it's actually about, we have allusions to all of the different fundraising drives that there were, and it's really related to the Tanya that we're learning over here, which also talks about this idea that on the one hand, we believe Amunah Pshuta, which is similar to the idea of Adanim, and also for those who understand more, that's amazing, that's wonderful, that's like the edifice of the Mishkan, which is on top of the Adanim. As the Rebbe explains, there's the Adanim, which is Kabbalah Soil, then there's the Krushim, which is Chachma Bin Adas, Chesed Gvura, the 10 spheres, and then there are the curtains that overhang. Those are the koiches makifim. Those are the transcendent koiches of the neshama, like Tainug and Ratzon. But bottom line is the whole edifice always has to be built on Emunah Pshuta. And this connects also to our parsha in a simple way, because in this week's parsha we have Nasa v'Nishma. In this week's parsha, we have Nasa v'Nishma. And Nasa v'Nishma tells us, what's interesting is that it says, the Gemara tells us in Masechta Shabbos, that when the Yidden said Nasa v'Nishma, some Malachim came down and they awarded every single Yid, they awarded every Yid 2 crowns. One for Nasa and one for Nishma. But the wording of the Gemara is, B'shah shehiktimu Yisrael Nasa v'Nishma, when the Yidden put Nasa before Nishma. Implication being that had the Yidden said Nishma v'Nasa, how many crowns would they have gotten? The Yidden would have said, we'll understand, and once we understand, if it makes sense to us, Nasa, we'll do it. How many crowns would they have gotten? 0. Think again. If the Yidden would have said, instead of Nasa v'Nishma, the Yidden, when Moshe comes to Yidden would have said Nishma. Tell us what it's all about. Let's hear. And once we understand what it is and it makes sense to us, then Nasa, then we'll do it. And they would have gotten nothing. It doesn't say B'shah sha'amru Yisrael Nasa v'Nishma. When the Yidden said Nasa v'Nishma, B'shah shikdimu Yisrael Nasa v'Nishma. The greatness was that the Nasa came before the Nishma. The Yidden said, we are doing, even before we understand the thing, we are doing. But once the Yidden put Nasa before Nishma, they didn't get 1 crown, they got 2 crowns. Think about that for a second. You would think that they should get 1 crown. What is the 1 crown? Because by putting Nasa before Nishma, they're demonstrating their allegiance and their bittul to Hashem. Why 2 crowns? So we see from here is that the Nishma is also important. Once you get the order right, once you put the Nasa first, once you have the Adonim, the Nasa is the Adonim, the Kabbalah soil, then the Nishma is very important also. That understanding is also important. And you'll get a crown for the understanding also. So if you put the Nishma before the Nasa, then you get nothing. Then your Nishma is worth nothing and your Nasa is worth nothing. Right? If you say to Hashem, Hashem, I'll understand, and once I understand, if I understand, I'll do. Then you get nothing, because your understanding is worthless, and your doing is also worthless. Why? Because the only reason why you're doing it is because it makes sense to you, for yourself. But if you put Nasa before Nishma, if you say, Hashem, I am doing, and after I do, and I fully accept to do, I will try to understand also, then you get a crown for the Nasa. The Nasa is perfect, and then you get a crown for the Nishma also. So this tells us we talked about the Adanim, how the Adanim are about Kabbalah soil and the foundation, but ultimately, it's not enough to have the Adanim. The Adanim is the Nasa. You also need to have the Nishma. You also need to understand exactly, we need to learn, we need to try to understand. I know last week we spoke about, someone asked the question on the Tanya, why are we learning this? And the answer is, it's a mitzvah. It's one of the greatest mitzvahs, is to learn about the Seder Ishtashlos. That's what the Arizal writes. It's a mitzvah Rama. I think the words are mitzvah Rama v'niskava, very high and a very exalted mitzvah, is to learn about these things and to saturate our minds with understanding of the mechanics, all of which is built on the Vehaemunah, which the Alter Rebbe describes over here. So here we have the Nasa and the Nishma. The Nasa is in the Tanya we just learned, and the Nishma is in the Haggadah that we just learned. Here we had both the Nasa and the Nishma. And this idea is also expressed in the very name of the Parsha. The name of the Parsha is Mishpatim. And what does Mishpatim mean? Mishpatim means those mitzvahs that are logical, that make sense. You know that there are three different types of mitzvahs. There's Eidos and Chukim and Mishpatim, and of the three, Chukim make no sense. Eidos make a little sense, or at least they make sense once we hear about them, they make sense to us. And Chukim are things that are obvious. The mitzvahs that are obvious. The mitzvahs that are obvious in order to be able to have a civilized society. Which is fascinating that right after Matan Torah, what is the first thing that Hashem gives us? No, right after, that was in Mitzrayim still. Right after Matan Torah, what is the first thing that we find out? Last week was Parshas Yisrael, we had the Seres HaDibros. Now comes along Parshas Mishpatim, and what do we find out? Ve'elam Mishpatim, a logical code of laws, which is a very important thing. Hashem is telling us Yiddishkeit is not only about learning Torah and davening and putting up a mezuzah and shaking an asrik. But Yiddishkeit is also Mishpatim. Yiddishkeit is an entire system of living. It's a system of living which encompasses every single part of our life. And what's important to know is that when we're doing Mishpatim, when we're doing these mitzvahs which are logical, which is possible, every single other judicial system has the same mitzvahs, but we're not doing it because it's logical. We're not doing it because the judicial system where we are demands that of us, but rather, as Rashi says, Ve'ela mishpatim ma, Ve'ela is meisif al rishonim, that the word Ve'ela is adding on beforehand. Ma, what's the lashon? Ma elo misinai, ma rishonim misinai, af elo misinai. Just like the Seres HaDibros from Sinai, this is also from Sinai. Our code, even the logical laws that we have, is also based on Sinai, which again reinforces the same idea. On the one hand, we have Sinai. Hashem gives us commandments, and we have to do them because Hashem commands. And that's why we're told that you're not allowed to go to a Goyish court. And even if you know the Goyish court is going to paskin the exact same way that a Bezdin is going to paskin, you're not allowed to go to the Goyish court. Why not? Imagine, you owe me money, okay? So I'll take you to the Goyish court, they'll make you pay. I'll take you to the Yiddish court, they'll make you pay. Why do I have to go to the Yiddish court? What's wrong with taking you to a small claims court? And the answer is that if I go to the Goyish court, the Arkais, then you're paying me because that's the logical thing. When you go to Din Torah, you're paying me not because it's logical, but because that's what Hashem said in the Torah has to be done. And every single thing about Yid is with bittul of Kabbalah soil, is with the Adanim. So here you have this paradox. On the one hand, it's mishpatim. These are mitzvahs that are logical, and we're meant to understand them. Mishpatim, the mitzvahs that are logical, they're meant to make sense of us, to make sense to us. But at the same time, they're Missinai. They're all based on the Adanim. They're all based on the Adanim. So we see from all over in this week's Parsha, and from Parsha Shkolim, we see this tension, which is not really a tension. It seems like a tension between logic and submission. And the question is, what is a Yid? Is a Yid a logical person? Or is a Yid someone who submits to Hashem? And the answer is both. But which one first? Submission's first. Submission first, the Nasa first, the Adanim first, the Sinai first. You see it from every single. And after the Adanim, you have the structure of the Mishkan, the whole human psyche. And after the Nasa, you have the Nishma. And after the Sinai, you have also the Mishpatim. And ultimately, this is the Kavanah, is that these things actually should make sense to us. And that godliness should permeate our mind, not just override our mind. That's the key over here. Think about it for a second. If the Eibishter wants, he can have robots to do his will. The Eibishter didn't want robots. What does he want? He wants people who accept. He doesn't want to force us. Think about it. The Eibishter could have created, and he did create, by the way, armies and legions of malachim. None of them have any free choice. And they have to do what Hashem wants. And then there's us. And Hashem, to us, he doesn't force us. He wants us to accept. He wants us to submit to him, and he wants it to make sense to us. He wants that this reality should be part of who we are. And that is the Af Elum Marishayim Misinai, Af Elum Misinai. Okay. So with that, we're finished Perek Tes. And let's get a little start on Perek Yud. Probably going to end Shaar a bit early today, but let's try to move a little into Perek Yud. Perek Yud. However, Makal Makaim, nevertheless, because the Torah talks in the language of the human being,
Yes.
right, Sasan? Dibra Torah Kalashon Bnei Adam. To calm down the ear, to give it something what it should be able to hear. Therefore, permission was given to the Mukubalim to describe the spheres in a way of a mashal, and he described them as oiris, light. This way, through this mashal, Yuvan Lanu Ktsas will have a little bit of understanding. Inyan Hayichud Shal Kadosh Baruch Hu Midaisa, the concept of the unity of Hashem with his midas. Shehu b'derech mashal, by way of example, is Ke'en Yichud Eir HaShemesh, is by the way of example like the light of the sun, Shebetech Guf Kader HaShemesh, while it's still within the sun, Im Guf HaShemesh, with the sun, Shenikra Moir, which is called the source of light. Okay. You know, this is one of the big problems with Kabbalah and learning, and the learning of the Kabbalah by the uninitiated and without teachers. And in fact, this is why the Baal Shem Tov was opposed to people stop learning Kabbalah without having proper teachers and proper guides, is because when you learn Kabbalah without proper guidance, it's very easy to
Slipped out.
to what?
Slip out, to be out of the derech.
To veer off in which way? Because Kabbalah uses all physical terms to describe Hashem. You know, we've spoken about this in the past. Where, you know, Gan Eden, even things like Gan Eden and Gehenna, where are they? Where is Atzilus? And all trying to understand, you know, give material definitions to spiritual. But that's what the Mekubalim did. The Sifrei Kabbalah, if you were just to read the Sifrei Kabbalah without proper guidance, everything seems like everything in the spiritual worlds, everything is described as in very physical terms. And the trick when learning Kabbalah and Chassidus is lahafshit hadavar megashmi yusan. This is a concept I believe that we've talked about in the past, which is divesting the terms from their physical reality. So, for example, it's not only in Kabbalah, even when you're learning Torah. So when it says Ein Hashem El Yireav, Hashem's eye is upon those who fear Him. Hashem has an eye.
No.
Ein leguf, the Eibishter has no body. Leitmuna. So what does it mean? Ein Hashem El Yireav. What does that mean? What does it mean? So, what we have to do, whenever we see something whenever we see something physical ascribed to Hashem, or to any spiritual entity above, we have to understand it's what is called an anthropomorphism. Anthropomorphism is the ascribing of human features to a non-human entity. So when we see the eye of Hashem, you don't have to start wondering whether Hashem has to get his eye checked by an optometrist every once in a while. You don't have to worry about whether Hashem has X-ray vision. Why? Because you're missing the whole point. Hashem doesn't have an eye. What is the spiritual definition of eye? Spiritual definition of an eye. What is the spiritual substance of the eye? With nothing physical in it. The eye, what does it give us? It lends us with awareness. The eyes provide us with awareness of what's going on. Yeah, we have other faculties also that provide us with awareness, and there are other senses also, but there's nothing, as we mentioned, seeing is believing. There's nothing like the eye to give us a complete awareness and picture of that which is going on. That's the spiritual concept that underlies the physical word eye. So it says Ein Hashem al Yirei. That means that Hashem is keenly aware of everything that's going on by those who fear Him. That's what it means. Lahafshit advarim megashmiyusam, to divest the matters from their physical containers. So yes, the Chachamim and even Torah speaks in words which are physical, but that's not really what it is. You have to again strip it of its physical trappings and uncover the spiritual reality that is behind it. Okay, so we talk about, for example, we're working on it this week, the fires of Gehenna. Right? Obviously, there are no fires in Gehenna. And by the way, if there were fires in Gehenna, if that's what Gehenna was fire, I think our neshamas would be very happy, because go try burning something which is spiritual. So if Gehenna was fire, that would be great. Unfortunately, Gehenna is not fire. It's a spiritual fire, whatever that means. Just like, as the Alter Rebbe brings down somewhere, that just like fire has the ability to refine and purify. Take silver, for example. How do you smelt silver? How do you remove its impurities? Through fire. The fires of Gehenna is a painful process which purifies the neshama and gets her ready for Olam Haba. The same thing as every single thing that we talk about. It's tough, because since we live in, and everything about we've spoken about this, everything about our reality is physical. It's hard to move out of our reality, but we have to strip all physical trappings of it and find its completely spiritual concept. So, one of the most prevalent words in Kabbalah is Oir, light. The light that extends from Hashem. And obviously it's not light, because light is a creation. Vayomer Elikim Yehi Oir. Hashem said, "Let there be light," and there was light. And when we're talking about the Oir Ein Sof, we're not talking about a created entity, but rather we're talking about something that extends from Hashem. So if it extends from Hashem, why would you call it light? It's not light. What spiritual property does it share with light that justifies us using that name? And by the way, I could think of other names to use. Energy.
It is energy.
Right? Another word that's sometimes used but not very often is Shefa. Shefa, there's no one word in English to translate Shefa, but Shefa means that which flows from. So the light flows from Hashem. Why the insistence? What is this idea of using the word Oir, of using light? And in different places in Chassidus, different answers are given to this question. Over here, in Perek Yud Shaar Vehaemunah, the Alter Rebbe is going to say that the use of the Mekubalim of the term Oir to describe that which emanates from Hashem is precisely to help us resolve the conflict of Hashem's unity with the spheres. That's the big issue that's confronting us over here. And how is it that Hashem, on the one hand, is above and beyond the spheres, at the same time unites with the spheres, and at the same time that doesn't in any which way impact his status of Achdus, his status of unity? So by comparing the energy, or that which emanates from Hashem, the Elokus, the godliness that emanates from Hashem, by comparing it to Oir, to light, so we're able to resolve somewhat, not completely resolve that question, because just like the source of light, like the sun, for example, it gives off light, and that light is absolutely united with the sun. And as much as that light is united with the sun, how much more so as we discussed in the previous chapters, is the light of the sun before it even exits the orb of the sun, while it's still included within the orb of the sun, where there is completely one with and batal b'mesias l'gabri to the mo'ir, to the source of the light, which is the sun. So the Rebbe says the same thing. The spheres are like the light that extends from Hashem, and that's how we can understand their unity with Hashem and how they do not pose a contradiction to the unity of Hashem. Because on the one hand, is light something different than is it a separate entity than the source of light? No. The light is merely an expression of, and an extension of the sun, and it is one with the sun. What is the light? The light it reveals the sun. And that is exactly what the spheres are. They're connected to Hashem, they're one with Hashem, and they are expressions of Hashem. They're not creations, they're not any entity which is outside of Him, and that's why the Mukubalim call the spheres oir, they call it light. For this reason, because to describe how you can have something which is seemingly outside of Hashem, Chachma, Bina, Das, Chesed, at the same time one with Hashem, and that is because they are oir, they are compared to oir, which explains their unity. At the same time, it's not a precise mashal, as we will explain next week.